for so many, I'm sure his name will come up in conversations with their college kids, because their college kids will be like mine and say, Mom, nothing's going to happen to me. And I've had moms tell me, and I've told my child, tell that to Jason Landry's parents. And it's just the most surreal thing to have your child be the topic of a Google search, or to be a topic of a television special or a news report. And it's not a positive one. And it's not what you ever expected life to be like. And so many people, especially in the holidays, we get so busy with life. We have so many, so much on our plate. And people need to pause and to reflect, because Jason's story is not any different than anybody else's. Our family is not any different than anybody else's. What would you do if this happened to you? For us as a family, we have the absolute confidence and hope. Jason's passed, he's in heaven. Nothing has changed for God's eternity. So I have that to look forward to. But not all families can say that. And I know I'm a pastor, and I know people, that's what they expect me to say, but honestly, because just today a person was asking me, how can you keep going? How can you stay strong? It's not me. I'm not any better or any worse. There's nothing special about me. But I know the truth of Jason's relationship with Christ, and that we're going to spend all eternity together. He just got there before me. And that makes me able to get out of bed. That makes me able to contemplate life without him. And as hard as that is, if someone didn't have that, if I didn't have that, I don't know how I'd be able to handle this. It's not something I would ever want to contemplate. And I don't want any other family to have to go through what we've gone through. But if somehow Jason's story has touched other people, then I have to be willing to share that.
As we approach 2 years, how frustrating is it for you to not have answers?
I was talking with a family this weekend, and they've lost their son to violence. And for them, it was a little bit over a month, a little bit over 30 days. And we were just talking about what that's like. And they were saying, as hard as the 30 plus days it was for us, I can't imagine, today is day 721. In some way, it's all a blur. Every day goes on. Some days you can squint and think nothing's wrong, but it doesn't last. Because, well, here we are. We just had Thanksgiving. Our family got together. There were over 20 of us there, but there was one that was not there. And here we were just talking before, in a few weeks, right now, college students are finishing up papers, finishing up finals, and then they're going to go home. And that's when it's hard, because all of our college students are going to come back, but mine doesn't. And we put up our Christmas tree. There's a whole box of ornaments that are Jason's. And do you put them up or do you not? And those are the holes that, you just, sometimes you just try to push on through it. Sometimes you just cry.
Have you heard any updates on the case?
Well, we've doubled the reward to $20,000. The Attorney General's office is still working. I think they're really trying to find a way to get the geofence warrant granted and get that data in a way to hopefully, maybe that will be the thing that breaks the case open.
And for people who don't know the word geofence. Why is that important to you? This is something you've been asking for since early on.
So as we drive around here, Houston, if you look at you, everyone probably knows what a cell phone tower looks like, but wherever your cell phone is, assuming you go on any app, most Google apps, and certainly, like for example, in Jason's case, he was using Waze to, he entered in our home address and hit go. And to track you, to be able to tell you, hey, in 200 yards, turn right on Smith Street, the cell phone towers are locating your phone and they're pinging every few seconds to find it. And so a geofence is simply and of course that's all digital data. And before they delete it, we're simply asking, tell us what other cell phones were in that small window, because Jason's case is unusual in many ways. It comes down to 1 hour and a 2-mile stretch of road. And were there any other people in proximity to, other cell phones in proximity to his cell phone? And that's really all a geofence is to find out that information. And then law enforcement could then say, there's another, was there someone sitting next to him in his car? Was someone else driving his car? Whatever it might be. Was there someone at that location of the crime, of the car crash? They use it every day in law enforcement, but to get that data requires a judge to grant a warrant and then for them to share it with law enforcement. And law enforcement, it's in many ways, it's kind of a digital eyewitness to where you were and what you did. If they pinged this location, there'd be, our cell phones would be in this room and we'd be next to each other, so.
You were talking about the variables in this case, and you're right, there are less than other cases. Gabby Pertito, you were talking about the national forest, the huge scope, multi-state search. Here we're talking about a very specific area, at a very specific time, and yet we still don't know what happened.
And that's the thing that keeps you up at night. And I think that's probably one of the things that people are intrigued with this case is it's not nearly as complex as so many they solve every single day. And so why do we have no answers as to, was Jason there? Was someone else there? Did something happen? And hopefully they'll be able to get answers to that, because in this day and age, even in a relatively rural area of Luling, there's got to be someone who knew something or saw something, and to give answers to our family and everyone else, the thousands of people. It's been strange. At different times, literally, his Find Jason Landry Facebook page, I've gotten 250,000 hits in a 24-hour period when something came up. I can't remember what it was about. And especially every time a TV show or a news report comes out, people are like, I think Jason's case is the kind of case that you're walking by the TV and the TV's on, the news is on, and there's something about it that stops you and goes, who? What happened? And then they start finding out information. And I think people are intrigued and captivated by it, and I think God's doing something with that.
Caldwell County has told us they have no evidence of foul play. Do you think that's fair?
Well, fair is a tough word. After all of this time, I mean, part of the problem I have with that conclusion is, what are you basing that opinion on? I mean, it's certainly a valid conclusion, but what is it based on outside of opinion and conjecture? And at this point, in what I know of investigations, it's certainly after all of these days, they've searched that same area over and over and over again. We've had, I know over 7 major searches, and certainly many, and they've searched dog teams on foot, horses, ATVs, planes, helicopters, drones, forever. So we've searched that space, and it's possible he could be there and we haven't found him. Certainly possible. But I think at a certain point in investigations, you have to ask, okay, what I thought happened may not be true. Let me look at other possibilities. And the frustrating thing for anybody who knows about Jason's case is, unfortunately, I think law enforcement has done that from the very beginning, from the very first highway patrolman. And you've all watched the body cam footage where he says, to another law enforcement officer, I think this was a drunk college student who wrecked his car. And for whatever reason, he had the opinion that drunk college kid wrecked his car, called a buddy, and is probably sitting at home. Well, they had already sent law enforcement officers to check, is Jason sitting at his apartment, or anyone that we know of, within relatively hours of his car being found. So when did Highway Patrol ever say, well, it wasn't a drunk college kid who just wrecked his car and got a ride home with his buddy? And the frustrating thing is they found his clothes, right then. I found his clothes, but they saw his clothes laying there in the middle of the road. They didn't even bother to pick it up. They didn't even bother to move it. But they saw his clothes there. And so if you literally think there is some college student naked in 30-degree weather with 20-degree knot winds, shouldn't you at least search for him? Shouldn't you get out of your car? But he just rode along his car, shining his light on the road. And that lackadaisical, indifferent attitude towards the suffering of people, for there's someone out there that needs to be found and helped, even if they are incapacitated, even if they're stoned or drunk or whatever. Part of law enforcement's job is to help those who can't help themselves. And that's the part that is frustrating from the very beginning, that law enforcement has treated this case with indifference, arrogance, frankly, maliciousness towards Jason and who he is. And that hurts. That is beyond frustrating. To be sitting here talking still about my son 721 days later. And here we are. Do we have any more answers as to what happened in that 1 hour, early in the morning, late at night, between December 13th and 14th? What happened to my son? There's not a scenario that I can think of reasonably that we haven't thought about or talked about. We've been preparing our hearts for the worst for a long, long time. But to not have those answers after so long, and each day just goes on and on and on, and each holiday gets harder and harder to celebrate without those answers.
Why do you think Caldwell County was not willing to explore other possibilities, explore other narratives?
I don't know. I know that they don't have, it's not like Harris County. It's not like there's another murder case that's taking up all their time. But for whatever reason, frankly, I think, and I by no means think all, because some of the people I've met in government and the district attorney in Caldwell County have been really caring about Jason. But for whatever reason, I think there certainly are many in Caldwell County in government or whatever that wish they'd never heard the name Jason Landry. And so for whatever reason, they choose to maybe just stick their head in the sand and hope it all goes away, and that eventually this crazy family will, and that's the that's the hard part about anybody as a parent. We're never going to go away. we're never going to stop looking for our child because that's our child. I mean, any parent would do the exact same thing that we are doing, is we're not going to give up. We're not going to keep praying. We're not going to keep looking, and we're not going to quit hoping until we know the truth and our child comes home, whatever that might look like.
Do you think Jason was murdered?
I don't know.
Do you think someone else was involved?
Well, I think it's certainly beyond plausible, because part of Jason's not the type to run away. So people have said that, there's nothing, I mean, there are all kinds of crazy theories out there, but Jason was not involved in anything with anyone like that, that would lead to, something. So either he wandered away from his car after the accident with a head injury or something and lied down and was hopefully gone quickly, or he's not in that area we keep looking for and searching over and over again, because he's not there because someone put him somewhere else, and that is murder. And it happens every day, and it might have happened to my child. And that is the job of law enforcement, to answer that question, is yes. And the arrogance of just simply saying it's no crime to run away and go missing. That's not what we're talking about. There's no indication, in spite of the smear job that Caldwell County Sheriff's Office did on Jason, that you could reasonably say Jason just ran away to start a new life. Why? His life was good as it could be for a college student in the midst of COVID. I mean, he's just not the type to run away, and no one would run away without their wallet and their ID and their money and their clothes. That just doesn't make sense. So did someone do something to him? And that's the question of that 1 hour and 2 miles. And 2 years later, we're still asking, and that's the frustrating thing, is we're still asking the same questions, and we're not getting any answers. For poor Gabby Petito's family, and frankly for poor Brian Landry's family. I feel for both of those families. But at least they do know what happened, and they can grieve. That's, as a pastor, I don't know how many funerals I've done. I don't know how many people I've baptized or babies I've seen being born, and it's always a miracle. But for us as a family, I don't want to have to bury my son, but I want to know. We want to have answers as to what happened that night. Whatever it might be, we'll deal with the consequences of that knowledge, but we would like to know, where Jason is. And if someone did do something to him, then they need to be brought to justice.
Talk us through the timeline that night, what we know about the digital footprint.
In a nutshell, Jason was going home from Texas State and driving here to Missouri City's Sugar Land area. We know that he was planning on going earlier, leaving earlier in his conversations with his friends. We know he was coming home. We knew, as the family, we knew he was going to be coming home. But just like his brother, who was at Texas A&M, both were students. He was at Texas State, his brother was at A&M. They were both in that process of finishing up finals, taking a breather, and coming home. Well, their big sister she lives in Chicago, so she wasn't home yet. So our family wasn't gathered for Christmas yet, but we knew, it was going to be happening that week. So we weren't worried about it. Because that's what college students do. They don't, at least my boys in college, they weren't the font of knowledge of every moment. I can't tell you how many times we would tell our boys, just let us know when you leave. and when you get there. Every parent has said that to their teenagers. Well, ours were no different, but they certainly don't do it at all times. But we did have his phone on locate. But so he left and was driving into Luling to get from San Marcos to here. You go through Luling, and as you come into town, in downtown, the intersection of, I think, top of my head, is it Magnolia and Austin? I think is what the streets are called there. Might be wrong on that. You would turn, the road ends, and there's a Baptist church is right there. I think it's renamed, but it was First Baptist, and you come to a T, and you could either go this way to go to Lockhart, or you would take a right, and you would go about 2 blocks, and then take a left, and then that would run you right into I-10 where Buc-ee's is, and you would take a left on I-10 and come straight into Houston. He was at that intersection at about 11:30, I think 11:31, according to his phone and Waze. As he was coming into town, into Luling, he got a Snapchat from a friend, and he must have looked at that or responded in one way or another, so it put Waze into the background. But he was at that intersection about 11:31, and at that moment, from that time forward, his cell phone activity and his digital footprint really ends. And his car was found wrecked an hour later at 12:30 by a volunteer fireman who was on his way home. He found his car turned around against a fence post and between 2 trees. Key still in the ignition, light still on, but no Jason. And his backpack, his toiletries, his fish, he had a betta fish that he was bringing home, his gaming gear, his wallet, were all, and his clothes that he was wearing, at least based on the pictures earlier that day, were all laying alongside or in the middle of the road, a few hundred yards away.
The friend that he Snapchatted, have you had the chance to visit with that friend?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I don't really know that young man that well. That wasn't a friend of his from high school. I think it's someone who went to the same high school, but they weren't really close. They'd become friends, I think, recently.
Did he say anything about the interaction, or it was just, I know a lot of those Snapchats are very short?
He's been very reticent about talking about it. I think he and Jason got to know each other more, and they talked a lot about strange topics and marijuana and things like that. I think COVID makes for strange bedfellows in relationships when you're only getting to know each other through a screen. I think all of our relationships changed. And it was kind of a weird time, and I think it was a strange time for Jason and a difficult time for Jason. And so the friends that he was closest with before that particular little piece of time for him were not the same that had sustained him through the years. And unfortunately, I think, as a parent, your children sometimes go through dark chapters and usually don't learn about them until later. And unfortunately, I think it's true for Jason. I mean, in all of these interactions and things he did and said and all that, they frankly break my heart as his dad. You don't like to see your kids struggle, and I think he was struggling at that time. And so for whatever reason, this case comes down to, I think he was at that intersection at 11:31. I think he was alone. Anything after that point for that next hour, I have no idea. Did something happen at that intersection? Had something happened to where maybe it was a road rage incident or something at that intersection, or driving through the rest of Luling, because it's not far to the edge of town. Jason had only just started at Texas State and only probably he'd only made that trip twice. He came back in October to vote, and in, for Thanksgiving vacation. So this was the third time he made that trip, and I don't think any of them were certainly that late at night. So did something happen? Did he have some interaction with someone there in Luling that caused his car to end up? I don't know if he was ever out on Salt Flat Road, or did someone else drive his car out to the edge of town and he never made it there. That's a possibility. And that's a question we would love to have answered, and law enforcement hasn't answered that question yet.
And you got the call that morning around 2 a.m.
Correct.
And you went straight there.
Pretty much. To get that 2 a.m. call, and basically we were told we found his car, and then it was a series of phone calls to try to figure out what's going on, where is he, and it wasn't too long before I'm like, well, I'm going to come, because whatever happened, I want to help look for him or find him, or if he's in the hospital or anywhere else, I want to be there. And so Lisa stayed to hold down the fort. Maybe he shows up at our door. Maybe she gets a call. Frankly, the whole time driving to Luling, I expected any minute to get a call. The whole time I expected any minute for my phone to ring, it'd be Lisa, and he's like, he's fine. Some kind soul picked him up, and he's there in Luling, or he's at home, or wherever he is, or he's in the hospital. All of those things run through your mind. That was a blur. That drive was a blur. But the strangest thing that I never expected to happen was when I got there, and I was the only person searching for him. And the officer, the highway patrolman, went home and went to bed, and he didn't even tell the officer coming on shift, what was going on to take over looking for Jason. He just went home and went to bed.
And then you found his cell phone.
Yeah, I found his cell phone. I found more than law enforcement ever did about Jason's case, unfortunately. But they treated it as just a simple car accident, and he arranged for the car to be towed, and went up and down the road, shining a light, looking for Jason, and that's it. He didn't get out of his car. The only time he got out of his car was to get his backpack, and he found the marijuana cigarettes and thought he, I guess, had a DUI.
Do you think they went with that narrative because it's easy?
I don't know. My guess is if he had it to do over again, he wouldn't do what he did. I think maybe it was the end of his shift. Maybe he just, for whatever he had the assumption, maybe he didn't like dealing with college kids. I don't know. I don't think it was a good day for him. It wasn't a good day for Highway Patrol, because I've had dealings with Highway Patrol as a lawyer and whatnot, and I've always found them to be incredibly professional, incredibly competent. This was not that. He didn't do when you have we've all seen it. When you have an auto accident case, you put the tape up, you measure the tire tracks, you take pictures. The only picture of his car at the accident scene was actually taken by the young man who found the car. He snapped a picture, I believe, of it.
The volunteer firefighter.
The volunteer firefighter. Highway patrolman never took a picture of the car, never did anything.
So you have no pictures, no photographs?
No.
Investigators have nothing?
No.
From what it looked like that night?
No.
On that road?
Not to my knowledge, no. The only photographs were taken, and the video is from the officer's body cam, I guess dash cam, and that I took that next morning, and when I found the clothes and found the scene of the accident.
A lot of people focus on the clothes on the road, and they think, did he take them off? Is he somewhere? What do you make of the clothes and how they were on the road like that?
Yeah, it's strange. having found them. Were they put there by Jason or were they put there by someone else? I can tell you this, just the way the shoes were and the backpack and the clothes that I found, they weren't thrown there. They did not appear to be thrown, just like if you threw it from a car, on the side of the road, or if you were staging it. Were they put there by Jason because he took his clothes off, willingly or not? Or were they put there by someone else? I don't know. But the frustrating thing is, at that hour and that temperature, if he were, I can't tell you what the image as a parent of your child, standing naked in a road in the middle of nowhere in the freezing cold. You wake up you spend a lot of sleepless hours thinking about that. And you just want someone to have been there to help your child.
Mm-hmm. Tell us everything you found. You found the shirt, shorts, shoes, socks.
He was wearing slides, socks, shorts, underwear, t-shirt. And I found all of those. And his backpack and toiletries and fish.
Were the shoes, you said it doesn't look like somebody tossed it. Were they kind of just placed?
Yes. You can see it in the videos are online that I took. I took them. Just because it's a surreal thing, but having tried enough cases, I know you don't leave evidence laying in the middle of the road. You pick it up and you document where it was found and how it was found. So it was the last thing I expected to find in the middle of the road. Just in the middle of a dirt road. I'm driving, looking for the accident scene, and as I'm looking, I'm driving and I see it, and I'm like, what is that lying in the road? And then I stop, and I realize I know it's Jason's. I know the shirt. It was a KHOU from Camp KHOU t-shirt. I know that shirt. It's his. I know his slides. I know his SpongeBob SquarePants socks. I know it's his. I know it's his clothes. And I look around and I see the backpack and I see his fish. He had a betta fish and he would bring it home for Christmas because you can't leave your fish for a month when you're gone. And so he'd always put it in a plastic travel tumbler with a lid and an air hole. And that's what he carried his fish in. So I knew it was Jason's. And that was the thing. It's like, okay, this is Jason's. Where's Jason? At first I thought, and thinking through it and seeing his backpack, I'm like, did it fall out of his laundry bag? A lot of times they just bring the laundry in a basket. Did it fall out of his car, his basket for some reason? Or was he searching for something in his backpack, like heavier clothes to put on, and that wasn't heavy enough? Until I saw the images and later. I had no idea how it got there, but I knew I'm not going to leave it laying in the middle of the road, and that's still one of the... It just feels like your child is discarded because they treat everything with this investigation with such indifference and cavalier attitude. You don't even secure the evidence, whatever it might be, whatever the clothes are or are not. You don't secure the car and the crash scene for further investigation. You don't even do the basics. That is your job. And then when it's your child, that is the subject of that investigation. And when you think that, okay, your son is out there potentially naked in freezing cold temperature, and you go home and go to bed instead of searching for him, well, at least when you go off shift, don't you tell your higher ups, hey, there's someone out here in freezing cold temperatures and they may be naked. We need to find this person. I just don't know how you can go, frankly, I don't know how you can go to sleep with that on your heart. And I'm quite sure if he had it to do over again, he wouldn't have done that. but it doesn't change that.
Is there anywhere that hasn't been searched that you want to search?
I would say to keep searching until we find him. So to keep searching until we find the last place you look will be the place he is, and whatever that is. I mean, and that's the hard part about this. So we've searched kind of in that same area, and that gets back to the issue of investigation. If he's not in that area, he is somewhere else because someone put him there. He's out of that 2 mile radius, 2 mile track along Salt Flat Road. If he's not there along Salt Flat Road, he's somewhere else, probably around Luling, because someone put him there. And that's something I can't answer. That requires law enforcement to find that answer. And of course, that's why we're offering the reward. If someone knows what happened and where Jason is and who put him there, I would love to send them that $20,000 because that gives our family answers.
And that's increased from 10 to 20 because of your friends, your family, your supporters, the people following this case. It's now $20,000.
Right. We've doubled it because, as the hashtag is, 2 years is too long for answers. And so we've talked about it for a long time, but after this amount of time, if that's what makes the case break open, then we are more than willing to share that.
And the Texas Attorney General's cold case unit now working on this case, they've been working on it. Do you feel like there's been more progress made with their attention?
Well, I think part of the challenge of this case and investigation is, unfortunately, I think the Attorney General's office is having to go back and do stuff that should have been done from the very beginning by Caldwell County and by the Texas Department of Public Safety, because there was so much left undone because they thought it was just a simple car accident. They never treated it. And they still, to this day, is there actually a murder investigation file for my son, or is it a missing persons? Well, the answer to that is no, because his case is only being handled by the Missing Persons Unit of the Texas Attorney General. I'm thankful that they've opened this unit, but this is the same thing that there are over 10,000 missing people in Texas right now. Cases open in Texas. Jason is one of those. How many of those missing people cases are actually murder cases? And that requires law enforcement to have the resources and the time and the investigators to actually find out what happened. I do not know if it is a murder or simply a missing person, but I know who should answer that question. And that's why we're trying to put as many resources in keeping the story open, because there are hundreds and thousands of families in the same boat that we are in.
And somebody out there somewhere must have seen Jason that night.
You would think. People don't just disappear into thin air. And
even at the intersection.
Yes. And that's the hard part, is to sit and watch TV and to see the case ongoing in Moscow right now, and I agree for those 4 families, and to see the FBI involved in so much. Why not my son? Is he not important to get answers for our family? And that's when it's hard, is when other cases get so much attention and then yours is forgotten about. Not by people, and that's the thing. There are thousands of people who are following his case and trying to get answers, and so many people who never knew Jason, who just are so amazing. We have met amazing people as a result of this. But for whatever reason, law enforcement and government, they just don't seem to care in the same way that so many people do. we just ask for prayers for our family, you know. In this season, we get so busy with our lives. And it's not just us, and it's not just Jason's situation, but there's so many people who are missing someone at this season. You know, we still have presents for Jason, but not just us. There's so many people who are missing, I mean, grandparents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, children. People are missing loved ones in this season. And for this season, which is the season of the greatest gift of all, to have a loved one missing, or to be missing a loved one because they've passed away or whatever, or broken relationships. You know, I just wish people would be thinking about others and not themselves so much, and to treat people with a bit more compassion and kindness, and to think about that maybe Christmas isn't the same type of joy. Life, for someone who is missing a loved one, however that might be, the season isn't the same as it is for everybody else. It doesn't feel the same. It's ups and downs. And I would just remind people that that's a reality for a lot of us. And it's hard. And prayers and hugs and just a little bit of thought and care for what someone else might be feeling. You know, if your grandmother has passed away, your grandfather's hurting. You know, if your brother or sister has a broken marriage, it's not going to be the same. You know, if your child is not home for Christmas, for whatever reason, it's hard for mom and dad, and it's hard for their child. You know, how many of our children are alone on Christmas because they couldn't, for whatever reason, be with their normal family for Christmas? It can be a very lonely time, and you know, invite people into celebration. Invite people to come to church with you, to bring them a meal, give them a hug, make them a cookie. Just think about your neighbor next door, and think about how you might be able to make a difference in their life. Because I think a lot of us suffer in silence and in loneliness. And, you know, I can't imagine doing what you do, reporting the news, and so much of it is hurt, and so much of it is pain. I wish you could do a lot more fun human interest stories, but people don't seem to care about the joy as much as, you know, things that go wrong. And there's a lot right. There's so many, you know, just like with Jason's case, there's so many amazing people that are making a difference about a young man they never met. And God is doing something with that. So, you know, for any parent, if, you know, heck, I'll be willing to talk to anybody if they have questions or what, but just remember why this season exists. It's for Christ, and it's for family, and it's for tradition, and it's, you know, not everybody is at the same place in any of those types of things. And I just, you know, frankly, I pray all the college students come home, because mine didn't.